My name is Alexandra, and at 34 years old, I never expected to be eating wedding cake next to industrial dishwashers. My brother Michael meant everything to me until he met Sophia. I spent months looking forward to his wedding day, only to be told I belonged with the servants. What nobody realized was that I held the future of the bride's father's company in my hands. A $34 million mistake they would never forget. If you're enjoying this story so far, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from, and get ready for a wedding reception nobody will ever forget. Michael and I grew up as best friends despite being 2 years apart. He was the protective older brother who taught me to ride a bike, defended me against neighborhood bullies, and stayed up late helping me with science projects. Our bond grew even stronger when our parents divorced when I was 12 and he was 14. During those tumultuous years, we created our own support system, promising we would always look out for each other. While Michael pursued engineering, I discovered my passion for business. I started in entry-level sales positions, working punishing hours and pouring everything into building my career. By 28, I had secured my first executive position at a tech solutions company. By 32, I was leading our corporate acquisitions team, responsible for identifying strategic partnerships worth millions of dollars. My success came from tireless work ethic and a reputation for straightforward, ethical business dealings. Michael met Sophia at an industry conference 3 years ago. He called me that night, unusually animated, describing her as brilliant and captivating. She worked in public relations for her father's company, though Michael didn't know much about her family background initially. Their relationship progressed quickly, and I was genuinely happy for him. The first time I met Sophia at a dinner Michael arranged, she seemed pleasant enough. She complimented my career achievements and asked thoughtful questions about my work. Yet something felt slightly off about her interest, as if she were assessing rather than connecting. Still, I dismissed my unease, wanting to support my brother's happiness. Over the following months, I noticed subtle changes in Michael. He became less available for our regular Sunday brunches. When we did meet, he constantly checked his phone, apologizing for having to respond to Sophia's messages immediately. Our conversations increasingly revolved around Sophia's preferences, her family's expectations, and the lifestyle Michael was adapting to. Meanwhile, my professional path unexpectedly intersected with Sophia's family. My company had identified Coleman Industries as a potential partner for a major infrastructure software implementation. The contract would be worth $34 million over 5 years, a deal that could transform both businesses. During initial negotiations, I dealt primarily with their executive team rather than the founder and CEO, Richard Coleman. These parallel tracks of my life continued without intersection for months. In business meetings, we referred to Mr. Coleman in the abstract. At family gatherings, Sophia mentioned her father without using his company name. It wasn't until later that I would realize the significance of this coincidence. As Michael and Sophia's relationship became more serious, the distance between my brother and me grew wider. Sophia began making subtle comments about my appearance or relationship status, always wrapped in a veneer of concern. "Still working those long hours? No wonder you can't meet anyone," she would say with a practiced, sympathetic expression. Or, "That outfit is so practical. I admire how you prioritize comfort over style." Michael never defended me during these moments. Instead, he would change the subject or laugh uncomfortably. When I tried to discuss it with him privately, he accused me of being oversensitive. "Sophia comes from a different world," he explained. "She doesn't mean anything by it. She's just trying to help." The engagement announcement came after just 18 months of dating. Michael called me, sounding excited but strangely rehearsed, as if reading from a script. Sophia's enormous diamond ring made its debut on social media before most family members had been personally informed. Throughout the engagement, I maintained hope that the wedding preparations would bring Michael and me closer again. I imagined us laughing together at ridiculous wedding traditions or him seeking my advice about dealing with in-laws. Instead, I found myself increasingly sidelined, My brother becoming a supporting character in the production that was Sophia's dream wedding. Coincidentally, negotiations with Coleman Industries intensified during this period. Our teams were finalizing contract details, and everyone at my company was excited about the potential partnership. I was slated to meet Richard Coleman in person for the first time at the final signing, scheduled for the week after Michael's wedding. In retrospect, I should have connected the dots sooner. But between my demanding work schedule and the emotional strain of watching my relationship with my brother disintegrate, I missed the signs that would have prepared me for what was coming. 8 months of wedding preparations became an exercise in patience and disappointment. Eager to rebuild my connection with Michael, I offered to help with whatever they needed, hoping for some shared experiences amid the chaos. I could help address invitations, I suggested during an early planning dinner. "Oh, we have a calligrapher for that," Sophia responded dismissively. "Someone who specializes in weddings. It needs to look consistent." When I offered to research vendors or coordinate with the florist, similar rejections followed. Everything was already handled by Sophia's mother's event planner, or her sorority sister who does this professionally, or some specialist who apparently possessed skills I couldn't possibly match. Michael watched these interactions with a placating smile, occasionally offering, "Alexandra is really organized." Soft, but never insisting on my inclusion when Sophia dismissed my offers. The pattern extended beyond wedding tasks. I learned about the engagement party after seeing photos posted online. When I asked Michael about it, he seemed genuinely confused about why I would expect to be invited to an event hosted by Sophia's parents for their circle. "It was just a small thing for the country club crowd," he explained awkwardly. "You wouldn't have enjoyed it anyway." The bridal shower invitation arrived with a pointed note from Sophia explaining that while traditionally only female family members and close friends attend, she was making an exception because Michael had insisted. During the event, I sat alone at a table with elderly relatives while Sophia's friends clustered together, occasionally glancing in my direction and whispering. The bridesmaids' luncheon proved even more revealing. Despite being Michael's only sibling, I wasn't included in the bridal party. Sophia had selected 6 sorority sisters and her 2 cousins instead. Still, I assumed I would be invited to pre-wedding events as a close family member. I was wrong. I discovered the luncheon was happening only when the mother of one bridesmaid mistook me for another guest and mentioned looking forward to seeing me there. Sophia never acknowledged the oversight, and Michael suggested I had misunderstood wedding etiquette. The dress fitting for my family of the groom attire became another uncomfortable milestone. While Sophia's mother and aunts received detailed guidance on complementary colors and styles, I was told simply to wear something appropriate in navy blue. When I arrived at the boutique Sophia recommended, the saleswoman seemed confused by my presence. "We don't have anything pulled for you," she said, checking her appointment book. "Are you at the Coleman wedding?" After a hurried call to Sophia, the woman directed me to a rack of discounted dresses. "Maybe one of these would work?" Nothing too attention-grabbing. "Of course." From the fitting room, I overheard Sophia arriving with friends, their voices carrying clearly. "Michael's sister?" "God, no. She's not a bridesmaid. Can you imagine her in the photos? All my friends are size 4. She's just family. Something simple and slimming is all she needs." The laughter that followed burned worse than any direct insult could have. The bachelor and bachelorette weekend in Miami marked the lowest point of the pre-wedding period. Michael had mentioned the trip months earlier, saying he wished I could meet his friends' partners who would be joining for parts of the celebration. I arranged time off work and booked my flight and hotel. 2 days before departure, I texted Michael to coordinate airport transportation. His response was bewildering. "We're actually in South Beach, not downtown. Didn't Sophia update you? The girls are doing their own thing at the spa resort." When I called for clarification, Sophia answered Michael's phone. "Oh, Alexandra. There must have been a miscommunication. The bachelorette activities are just for the bridal party. The other girlfriends and wives are joining for dinner Saturday, but since you're not a +1 or in the bridal party, well, it would be awkward, wouldn't it?" I'm sure Michael meant to clarify. I went anyway, determined to support my brother. After changing my hotel reservation and paying change fees for flights, I arrived to find the groups had left for a private beach club. That evening, I finally located them at a restaurant. Michael seemed surprised, but not necessarily pleased to see me. Sophia's friends closed ranks, creating a physical barrier that left me standing awkwardly at the fringe of the group. The next morning, I confronted Michael in the hotel lobby. What's going on? Why am I being shut out of everything? You're being dramatic, he responded, looking around nervously as if worried someone would overhear. Sophia has a certain vision for her wedding. Her wedding? It's supposed to be both of yours. You know what I mean, he said dismissively. Why can't you just be happy for me? You've always been jealous when attention isn't on you. His words struck like a physical blow. This wasn't my brother speaking. These were Sophia's assessments coming from his mouth. I don't recognize you anymore, I said quietly. Maybe you never really knew me, he replied, walking away to rejoin the group that had replaced me in his life. It was during the flight home, numb from this exchange, that I scrolled through photos from the weekend tagged on social media. A candid shot of Sophia with her father caught my attention. The caption read, "Daddy's little girl with the man who built Coleman Industries from nothing. Can't wait to celebrate with everyone." I stared at the image of Richard Coleman, the man whose company was about to sign a multi-million-dollar contract with mine, the man I had been negotiating with through proxies for months. Sophia was a Coleman. My future brother-in-law was Richard Coleman's son-in-law. The coincidence seemed too significant to be accidental. Had Sophia known all along? Had Michael? Was this entire relationship somehow connected to the business deal? I dismissed the thought as paranoid, but a seed of suspicion had been planted. Still, I decided to attend the wedding, holding on to hope that my brother would return to himself once the wedding stress subsided. The morning of Michael and Sophia's wedding arrived with perfect weather and my stomach in knots. I spent extra time on my appearance, selecting an elegant navy blue dress that respected Sophia's color scheme while flattering my figure. My hair and makeup were professionally done, a rare indulgence motivated by determination to hold my head high despite months of subtle exclusion. I practiced my smile in the mirror, rehearsing warm congratulations and pushing aside hurt feelings. Today was about Michael, I reminded myself. Whatever had come between us, he was still my brother. And I would not add to any wedding day drama. The ceremony was scheduled for 4 o'clock at St. Agnes Cathedral, with reception following at the Coleman estate. I arrived early, expecting to be included in family photos or pre-ceremony gatherings. Instead, I found myself awkwardly lingering in the church vestibule while the wedding party and family members disappeared into separate preparation rooms. A coordinator with a clipboard approached, looking confused. "Are you at the wedding? The guest seating begins in 30 minutes. I'm the groom's sister," I explained. Her eyebrows lifted slightly. "Oh, I don't have you on my list for the family holding room. Let me check." She returned looking uncomfortable. "The bride has requested that non-wedding party family members remain in the main church until the ceremony. There's limited space in the preparation areas." Through the half-open door behind her, I could see a spacious room filled with people, including several older couples I didn't recognize who were clearly not in the wedding party. My parents sat awkwardly in a corner, looking out of place among the wealthier Coleman relatives. The ceremony itself was elaborate and impersonal. Sophia floated down the aisle in a gown that probably cost more than my car, looking like a magazine cover rather than a bride in love. Michael beamed at her with adoration. I hadn't seen him direct at anyone before, not even in his previous serious relationships. I watched from my seat in the 4th row, behind 3 rows of Coleman relatives, fighting back tears that had nothing to do with normal wedding emotion. The brother who had built pillow forts with me during thunderstorms, who had held my hand at our grandmother's funeral, who had sworn we would always be each other's constant in a changing world, now seemed like a stranger. Following the ceremony, guests were directed to the Coleman estate, a sprawling property with manicured gardens and a tent structure that looked more permanent than temporary. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, Flowers cascaded from every surface, and a string quartet played as attendants with trays of champagne greeted arriving guests. Inside, I searched for the seating chart, expecting to find myself at the family table near the wedding party. I scanned the elegant calligraphy once, twice, then methodically checked each table assignment. My name was nowhere to be found. "Excuse me," I asked a nearby wedding planner. "I don't see my name on the seating chart." "I'm Alexandra Peterson, the groom's sister." She frowned, checking her tablet. "Let me look into that for you." After several minutes, she returned with a strained smile. "It seems there may have been an oversight. Why don't you enjoy the cocktail hour while I sort this out?" An hour passed as I made awkward conversation with distant relatives and Michael's college friends, everyone assuming I knew where I was seated. When the dinner bell rang, guests began finding their assigned tables. I spotted my parents sitting at a table near the front, but far enough from the head table to make their secondary status clear. With nowhere else to go, I approached Sophia, who was accepting congratulations from a cluster of expensively dressed women. "Sophia, I hate to interrupt, but there seems to be a problem with the seating arrangements." "I'm not on the chart." Sophia's smile remained fixed, but her eyes turned cold. "Oh, Alexandra. Yes, we had a last-minute adjustment with the tables. We needed to accommodate some important business associates of Daddy's." "So where should I sit?" I asked, increasingly uncomfortable as the women around her watched our exchange with poorly concealed interest. Sophia's gaze flicked over my shoulder to where her father stood watching. Something passed between them before she turned back to me with a smile that never reached her eyes. "You're a servant. Geo eat in the kitchen," she said contemptuously, loudly enough that conversations nearby paused. "The staff can make room for you there." The silence that followed seemed to stretch forever. My face burned as guests pretended not to stare. I looked past Sophia to where Michael stood with his groomsmen, close enough to have heard. Our eyes met briefly before he looked away, turning to engage one of his friends in apparently urgent conversation. Richard Coleman, whom I recognized from company photos but had never met in person, laughed openly at his daughter's words. "Now, princess, be kind," he said without any actual admonishment in his tone. "I'm sure the caterers can find a folding chair somewhere." In that moment, something shifted inside me. The humiliation burning through my chest transformed into cold, clear purpose. Without a word, I turned and walked toward the kitchen, head high despite the whispers that followed me. The catering staff looked startled when I entered their workspace, filled with the controlled chaos of dinner service preparation. "Can I help you, miss?" asked an older woman in chef's whites. "Apparently I'm meant to eat in here," I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. "The bride's orders." The woman's expression shifted from confusion to sympathy. "Those Coleman people," she muttered. "Not the first time." She gestured to a small table in the corner. "You can sit there if you like. We're about to plate the main course. But I can have someone bring you a starter now." I thanked her, sinking into the chair as the reality of the situation washed over me. In the background, staff moved efficiently, occasionally casting curious glances my way. "Been working Coleman events for years," said a young server who brought me a plate and glass of wine. "Miss Sophia has always been something else. Last Christmas party, she made one of her father's executives eat in his car because he brought his wife when the invitation said no +1s. Another server chimed in. "Remember the housekeeper who got fired because she used the wrong detergent on Miss Sophia's riding clothes? 20 years with the family, gone just like that." Their stories continued, painting a picture of the Colemans that confirmed every suspicion I'd developed. Richard Coleman ran his business the same way he ran his household, with arbitrary cruelty disguised as high standards. As I sat there, picking at food I couldn't taste, the pieces suddenly connected. The Coleman Industries contract, Richard's presence at the wedding, the calculated humiliation. This wasn't just about Sophia's bridezilla tendencies or Michael's weakness. There was something more strategic at play. Pulling out my phone, I checked my work email. The final contract review with Coleman Industries was scheduled for Tuesday, just 2 days away. $34 million that would significantly impact both companies. I scrolled to a photo on my phone, our executive team celebrating after the preliminary agreement, my name clearly visible on the documents spread across the conference table. If Richard Coleman had done even basic research on his potential business partners, he would have recognized my name, which meant he knew exactly who I was while watching his daughter humiliate me. The realization crystallized my thoughts. This wasn't just about a wedding seating arrangement. This was about power, disrespect, and the kind of people I refused to do business with, regardless of the dollar amount. Sitting in that kitchen, surrounded by the industrious staff who had shown me more kindness than my own family, I made my decision. Richard Coleman would learn that treating people as disposable came with consequences. So would Sophia. And Michael would have to live with the fallout of his choices. I excused myself to find a quieter spot, stepping into a small office the catering manager used. Closing the door, I called my VP of Operations, Janet. "Alexandra? I thought you were at your brother's wedding," she answered, surprised. "I am." "Listen carefully, Janet. I need you to quietly prepare cancellation documentation for the Coleman Industries contract. Cite Clause 22 regarding ethical business practices and corporate culture alignment." "What?" "We've been working on this deal for months. The board is counting on this." "I know. But I need those documents ready for my signature first thing Monday morning. I'll explain everything then, but I need to know they're ready. Are you sure about this?" "More sure than I've been about anything in my career. Trust me, Janet." After ending the call, I took several deep breaths. The contract had an ethics clause that allowed either party to withdraw if they discovered practices inconsistent with their corporate values. It was standard language rarely invoked, but legally sound. I had documentation of Richard Coleman's previous questionable business tactics, material we'd gathered during due diligence, but hadn't considered disqualifying. Combined with what I'd witnessed today, it would be enough. I checked my appearance in a small mirror, reapplied my lipstick, and straightened my shoulders. Then I walked back into the reception with newfound purpose. The dinner service was underway, guests enjoying their expensive meals at beautifully decorated tables. I moved through the space with deliberate confidence, nodding pleasantly to those who made eye contact. Several people who had witnessed my earlier humiliation looked away uncomfortably. A few of Michael's friends approached me with awkward sympathy. "That was really messed up, Alex," said Danny, Michael's roommate from college. I would have said something, but it all happened so fast. "It's fine," I assured him with a calm I didn't entirely feel. "Some people show you exactly who they are when they think they have power over you. It's actually valuable information." I positioned myself near the bar, sipping water and observing the room. Richard Coleman held court at his table, gesturing expansively as he told a story that had his companions laughing on cue. Sophia floated between tables, accepting compliments with practiced graciousness. Michael followed half a step behind her, looking happy but somehow diminished. My opportunity came during the transition between dinner and dancing. Richard Coleman made his way to the bar, ordering a scotch neat with the casual entitlement of a man accustomed to the best of everything. I approached casually, as if just arriving for my own drink. "Quite the celebration you've put together," I commented. He turned, assessing me with the practiced eye of someone who categorizes people by their utility. "Nothing but the best for my little girl," he said. "Though I don't believe we've been introduced." "Richard Coleman." He extended his hand. "Alexandra Peterson," I replied, shaking it firmly. "Congratulations on gaining such a wonderful son-in-law. Michael's a good kid. Not from our usual circles, but Sophia sees something in him." He took a sip of his scotch. "Peterson. That name sounds familiar." "It might. I work in technology infrastructure solutions." His eyes sharpened with interest. "Ah, business. Now we're speaking my language." "What company?" "Integrated Systems Alliance. We specialize in enterprise-level implementations." Recognition dawned slowly. "Wait. ISA? We're finalizing a contract with ISA next week." I smiled. "Yes. I believe we are." "Small world, isn't it?" He laughed, but I caught the calculation behind his eyes. "Indeed it is." I don't recall seeing your name on any of the materials. I lead the acquisitions team. My name is on every page of the contract, actually. His smile faltered slightly. Well, this is fortuitous. We should discuss some of the implementation timelines while we're here. Actually, there is something contract-related I've been meaning to address, I said pleasantly. All ears. He replied, signaling the bartender for another drink. Though my legal team handles the fine print. It's more about company culture alignment. You see, at ISA, we believe how you treat people reflects how you conduct business. He waved dismissively. Corporate speak. What matters is results, not whether everyone gets a gold star for participation. Interesting perspective. Is that why you were comfortable watching your daughter instruct me to eat in the kitchen? As a test of character, perhaps? His expression hardened. Excuse me? Earlier this evening, when Sophia told me, her new husband's only sister, to eat with the servants. When you laughed and suggested a folding chair might be found for me. Was that a business test of some kind? Richard's face cycled through confusion, recognition, and finally a poor attempt at damage control. That was you? Look, weddings are stressful. Sophia has been under tremendous pressure. I'm sure she didn't mean anything by it. Actually, I think she meant exactly what she said. And I think you approved. Now wait a minute. He blustered, lowering his voice as nearby guests glanced our way. What happens at a family event has nothing to do with our business arrangement. I disagree. It has everything to do with it. You see, I believe a company's ethics start at the top. How leaders behave when they think no one important is watching tells me everything I need to know about how they'll behave when contracts are signed and challenges arise. Richard's expression darkened. Listen carefully. That contract represents significant opportunity for both our companies. Whatever perceived slight you're nursing should be set aside for the greater good. Greater good, I repeated thoughtfully. Like family loyalty? Respect for others regardless of their status? Those kinds of greater goods. Before he could respond, Michael appeared at his father-in-law's elbow. Everything okay here? He asked, eyes darting nervously between us. Michael, I said calmly. Perfect timing. I was just discussing business with your new father-in-law. Business? Now. Michael looked confused. It's my wedding. Yes, it is, I agreed. A day when family should be celebrated. All family. Recognition dawned in Michael's eyes. Alexandra, about the seating thing. There was a miscommunication with the planner. Sophia feels terrible about it. Does she? Because she seemed quite clear about where I belonged. Richard interjected, Michael, you didn't tell me your sister was with ISA. We're doing significant business with them. Michael paled slightly. I didn't think it was relevant. Evidently not, I said. Just like I wasn't relevant enough to be seated with family at your wedding. The calculation behind Richard's eyes shifted to concern. Perhaps we should discuss this in private. No need. I replied, removing my phone from my clutch. I've made my decision. The reception was in full swing, the dance floor crowded with guests enjoying the live band. Near the edge of the celebrations, our trio stood in a tableau of tension, Richard Coleman's face flushed with the dawning realization that his actions might have consequences. Whatever you're thinking, let's discuss this rationally, Richard said, attempting to regain control of the situation. Business and personal matters should remain separate. I completely agree, I replied, my voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through me. Which is why I cannot in good conscience continue a business relationship with someone whose values are so fundamentally misaligned with my company's ethos. Michael stepped closer, lowering his voice. Alexandra, what are you talking about? What business relationship? Your father-in-law's company is about to sign a $34 million contract with my firm. I explained, watching comprehension dawn on my brother's face. Or rather, they were about to. Richard's demeanor shifted instantly from dismissive to ingratiating. Now, Alexandra, let's not be hasty. Whatever happened earlier was unfortunate, but surely not worth jeopardizing a mutually beneficial partnership. Several business associates of Richard's had drifted closer, sensing the tension in our conversation. I recognized two board members from Coleman Industries among them, their expressions curious. Actually, I believe how we conduct ourselves in personal settings is the truest reflection of character, I said, raising my voice slightly to ensure they could hear. A company is only as ethical as its leadership. With deliberate calm, I pressed Janet's number on my phone and put it on speaker. Alexandra? Everything okay? Janet answered. I smiled directly at Richard Coleman as I spoke. Yes, Janet. I've made my decision about Coleman Industries. Cancel the $34 million contract immediately. Prepare the ethics clause documentation we discussed. Michael went pale, his eyes widening in panic. Alexandra, no. You can't do this. It's already done, I replied, ending the call. Richard's face contorted with anger. You'll regret this. Do you have any idea who you're dealing with? I can destroy your career with one phone call. Actually, Mr. Coleman, I know exactly who I'm dealing with now. That's the problem. I turned to address his colleagues who were openly watching now. Gentlemen, I apologize that our companies won't be working together. SA maintains strict ethical standards for our partnerships, and unfortunately, we've encountered irreconcilable differences in corporate culture. One of the board members, an older man with shrewd eyes, looked between Richard and me. What specific concerns are you referring to, Ms. Peterson? Richard interjected quickly. This is ridiculous. She's making a personal grievance into a business issue. The girl's upset about wedding seating, for God's sake. The girl is the chief acquisitions officer of the company you've spent 6 months courting, I corrected calmly. And yes, I was instructed by your daughter to eat in the kitchen while family celebrated, with your explicit approval. But that's merely the visible symptom of a deeper problem. I turned back to the board member. During our due diligence, we uncovered concerning patterns in Coleman Industries' vendor relationships and employee turnover. I was willing to address these collaboratively until I experienced firsthand how the Coleman family treats those they consider beneath them. I cannot, in good faith, recommend partnership with a company whose leadership demonstrates such values. Sophia had noticed the commotion and swept over, her wedding gown rustling impressively. What's going on here? Daddy? Richard's complexion had moved from red to nearly purple. Your new sister-in-law is threatening our company over some perceived slight. Slight? I repeated incredulously. You publicly humiliated a family member and laughed about it. Sophia dismissed this with a wave. Don't be so sensitive. It was just a joke. A $34 million joke, apparently, said the board member dryly. Richard, perhaps we should continue this discussion Monday morning. Michael grabbed my arm, pulling me away from the group. What the hell are you doing? This is my wedding day. Yes, it is. And you stood there while your wife told me to eat with the servants. You said nothing. It wasn't like that, he insisted, though his eyes couldn't meet mine. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. Sophia's family has certain expectations. And what about your family? Michael? What about the expectations of basic decency? The brother I knew would never have allowed anyone to be treated that way, let alone his own sister. His face crumpled slightly. Alexandra, please. This contract could ruin Richard. Sophia will never forgive me. That's not my problem, I replied. You made your choice earlier tonight. Now I've made mine. From across the room, raised voices indicated Richard was having a heated discussion with his board members. Guests were beginning to stare, the perfect wedding reception devolving into uncomfortable spectacle. Sophia reappeared, fury evident beneath her bridal makeup. Fix this, she hissed at Michael. Now. I can't, he replied helplessly. Alexandra has the authority to cancel the contract. Then she can uncancel it. Sophia turned to me, her voice dropping to a threatening whisper. Listen to me carefully. If you don't undo whatever you just did, I will make sure you never see your brother again. That's your answer to everything, isn't it? Threats and isolation. You've been working to separate Michael from everyone who cares about him since you met. You bitch, she seethed. You have no idea who you're messing with. Actually, I do now. And so does everyone else. I gestured to the growing number of guests watching our exchange, including several business associates who looked deeply uncomfortable. Richard stormed over, his attempt at controlling his temper visible in his rigid posture. This is not over. My lawyers will be contacting your company first thing Monday morning. What you're doing constitutes tortious interference. Actually, it doesn't, I replied calmly. The ethics clause in our contract draft gives either party the right to withdraw if they discover practices inconsistent with their corporate values. I've documented everything, including tonight's events. Multiple witnesses heard your daughter's instructions and your response. It was a misunderstanding, Richard insisted, looking around at the watching crowd. Was it? Or was it a glimpse of how the Colemans truly operate? I addressed this to the room at large. How many others have experienced similar treatment? The uncomfortable silence that followed was answer enough. You'll never work in this industry again, Richard threatened, his voice low but intense. Threats now? In front of witnesses? I shook my head. You're only reinforcing my decision. Michael made one last desperate attempt. Alexandra, please. We can work this out as a family. Family? I echoed. Is that what we still are? Because when it mattered, when you had to choose, you didn't stand with me. The wedding coordinator approached nervously. Excuse me, but the photographer is waiting for the cake-cutting ceremony. Sophia grabbed Michael's arm. We need to get back to our guests. This discussion is over. As they walked away, Richard lingered, his expression murderous. This isn't finished. Actually, Mr. Coleman, I believe it is, I replied, then turned and walked calmly through the beautifully decorated reception, past the tables where I had not been welcome, and out into the night air. Behind me, I could hear the forced gaiety resuming as the MC announced the cake cutting. But the perfect facade of the Coleman celebration had cracked irreparably. And somewhere deep inside, beneath the adrenaline and anger, I felt the first faint stirring of relief. The truth, however painful, was finally exposed. The days following Michael's wedding passed in a blur of professional damage control and personal aftermath. I arrived at work Monday morning to find 3 voice messages from Richard Coleman, each progressively less controlled, and a formal email from Coleman Industries' legal department threatening litigation. Janet was waiting in my office, concern evident in her expression. The cancellation documentation is ready, but the board wants to meet immediately. $34 million is significant, Alexandra. I nodded, feeling the weight of my decision. I know. I'm prepared to explain my reasoning. The emergency board meeting was tense, but ultimately supportive after I presented the full context, including documentation of Coleman Industries' history of vendor intimidation and workforce complaints that our due diligence had uncovered. We don't partner with companies that don't share our values, our CEO concluded after deliberation. Alexandra made the right call, however personally difficult. We'll weather the financial implications. By Wednesday, word had spread through industry circles. I received a surprising call from Coleman Industries' main competitor. We've been hearing interesting things about why your deal with Coleman fell through, their VP of Operations said. We'd like to discuss whether our companies might be better aligned. By week's end, we had preliminary discussions for a potentially larger partnership than the Coleman deal would have provided. Meanwhile, the personal fallout was harder to navigate. Michael called repeatedly, his messages evolving from angry accusations to desperate pleas. You've ruined everything, his first voicemail declared. Sophia is devastated. Her father might lose board support. How could you do this to me on my wedding day? 3 days later, Alexandra, please call me back. Sophia's father is talking about early retirement. The board is launching an ethics investigation. This is affecting my position in the family. By the following week, I didn't understand what was happening with Sophia's family. Please, can we talk? Things are falling apart here. I let each message sit unanswered, processing my own complex emotions. Part of me ached for the brother I had lost long before the wedding day. Another part remained angry at his betrayal. Mostly, I felt a profound sadness for what our relationship had become. Our parents called, confused and concerned. They had witnessed some of the wedding tension, but didn't understand the business implications. Michael says you canceled some contract with Sophia's father, my mother said cautiously. He's very upset. Did Michael tell you what happened at the reception? I asked. How his wife told me to eat in the kitchen. How he stood by and said nothing. The silence on the line spoke volumes. He said there was a misunderstanding about seating, she finally offered. It wasn't a misunderstanding, Mom. It was deliberate humiliation. And Michael allowed it. After hearing the full story, my father's response was unexpectedly supportive. You stood up for yourself. That took courage. The professional consequences for Coleman Industries unfolded rapidly. An anonymous email arrived in my inbox 2 weeks after the wedding, sent from a generic address. I was a bridesmaid at Sophia's wedding and witnessed how you were treated. You should know this isn't isolated behavior. Attached are emails showing how Richard Coleman instructed his team to research your company extensively, including your personal connection to Michael, before pursuing the contract. They've done this with other family-connected businesses. The attached emails confirmed my suspicions. The Coleman Industries partnership had been strategic, with Richard fully aware of who I was from the beginning. The contract pursuit had been, at least partially, about leveraging family connections and perhaps gaining insider information. I forwarded the evidence to our legal team, who confirmed it strengthened our position should Coleman pursue litigation. They never did. A month after the wedding, business news outlets reported that Richard Coleman was stepping down as CEO, with the board citing a desire to pursue new leadership aligned with modern corporate ethics standards. The company's stock dropped 15% on the announcement. Sophia's carefully curated social media presence shifted from wedding bliss to damage control. Saddened by false rumors circulating about our family business, she posted. Some people will twist anything to serve their own agenda. The comments were filled with accounts from former employees and associates sharing their own experiences with the Coleman's behavior, suggesting a pattern much larger than one wedding incident. Through mutual friends, I heard that Michael and Sophia's relationship was showing strain. She blamed him for not controlling his sister, while he was beginning to question the family he had married into. They canceled their planned honeymoon to Italy, citing business concerns. Meanwhile, I channeled my energy into work and rebuilding my personal life. I reconnected with friends I had neglected during Michael's engagement, joined a hiking group I had always been interested in, and started volunteering at a mentorship program for young women in business. 6 weeks after the wedding, I received a text from Michael that broke through my defenses. I miss my sister. The person I was before Sophia wouldn't recognize who I've become. Can we talk? Just us. After much consideration, I agreed to meet him for coffee at a neutral location, a small cafe halfway between our homes. When I arrived, I barely recognized him. Michael had lost weight, and the confident posture he had adopted during his relationship with Sophia was gone, replaced by the more authentic but vulnerable bearing of the brother I remembered. "Thank you for coming," he said, his voice rough with emotion. I nodded, not yet ready to offer more. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," he continued when I didn't speak. "About who I became with Sophia. About what I allowed to happen to you. And?" I prompted when he paused. "And I'm ashamed," he admitted, meeting my eyes directly for the first time. I chose status and acceptance over my own sister. Over my own values. There's no excuse for that. No. I agreed. There isn't. He nodded, accepting the hard truth. After you left the reception, things fell apart quickly. Richard was furious, Sophia was humiliated. And suddenly everyone was looking at me differently. The perfect wedding became a disaster. But that's not why I'm here. Why are you here, Michael? Because I miss my sister. Because I was wrong. Because I want to find my way back to being the person who would never have allowed anyone to treat you that way. His voice broke slightly. If that's even possible. For the first time since the wedding, I felt the ice around my heart begin to crack. I miss my brother too, I admitted. But I don't know if we can go back. Not back, he agreed. Forward, maybe. Different, but better. As we talked, Michael revealed how Sophia had systematically isolated him from friends and family. How her father's approval had become a drug he couldn't resist, how he had compromised himself in small ways until the big betrayals seemed somehow justifiable. "I'm seeing a therapist," he confessed, trying to understand how I lost myself so completely. "And Sophia?" I asked carefully. His expression clouded. We're struggling. She doesn't understand why I'm questioning things now. She expected me to blame you for everything. Are you going to stay together? I don't know, he answered honestly. Part of me still loves her, or who I thought she was. Another part is terrified of who I become when I'm with her. By the time we parted, no magical reconciliation had occurred. But a door had opened. Michael had taken the first step toward accountability, and I had taken my first step toward forgiveness, however tentative. The final unexpected consequence came 2 months after the wedding. An email from Richard Coleman appeared in my inbox with the subject line, "Request for meeting." After consulting with our legal team, I agreed to meet him in a public restaurant with my company's counsel present. The Richard Coleman who arrived was markedly different from the arrogant man at the wedding reception. Retirement had not been kind to his ego. "Miss Peterson," he began formally. "I appreciate you agreeing to meet. What can I do for you, Mr. Coleman?" I asked, maintaining professional distance. "I find myself at a crossroads," he said, the rehearsed quality of his words suggesting therapy or coaching. "The events following my daughter's wedding have forced me to reflect on certain patterns of behavior." I waited silently, giving him nothing. The board investigation uncovered practices I had rationalized as necessary business tactics. "My family relationships are strained. My daughter's marriage is struggling." "I'm sorry to hear that," I replied neutrally. "But I'm not sure what this has to do with me." "I believe I owe you an apology," he said, the words clearly difficult for him. My behavior at the wedding was inappropriate. More importantly, the corporate culture I fostered at Coleman Industries was fundamentally flawed. The apology seemed both genuine and incomplete. A man beginning to recognize his failures without fully understanding their impact. "Thank you for saying that," I responded carefully. "But understanding requires action, not just acknowledgement." He nodded slowly. "I'm learning that." Painfully. He hesitated before continuing. "I don't expect forgiveness or a reversal of your business decision. I simply wanted to acknowledge my role in what transpired." As he left, I felt no triumph or vindication. Only a somber recognition that accountability sometimes comes at tremendous cost for everyone involved. 6 months after Michael's wedding, the landscape of my life had transformed in ways I never could have anticipated. My company had finalized a $40 million partnership with Coleman Industries' main competitor, a deal that earned me a promotion and industry recognition. More importantly, we had built the relationship on mutual respect and transparent communication, values I now refuse to compromise. Richard Coleman had fully retired from business life, his reputation permanently altered by the ethics investigation that followed his departure. Coleman Industries continued under new leadership, implementing governance changes that suggested the problems had indeed started at the top. My relationship with Michael had entered a careful rebuilding phase. Our coffee meetings became a monthly tradition, each conversation gradually restoring trust while acknowledging that our relationship would never return to what it had been before Sophia. In some ways, the honest recognition of our capacity to hurt each other had created space for a more authentic connection. "Sophia and I are separating," Michael told me during one such meeting. "We've been in counseling, but there are fundamental issues we can't resolve." "I'm sorry," I said, genuinely meaning it despite everything. "That can't be easy." "It isn't," he agreed. "But staying would be harder. I keep compromising myself in ways that make me unrecognizable." "That's no foundation for a marriage." How's she taking it? Alternating between trying to change my mind and threatening to destroy me. He smiled ruefully. Classic Sophia. "But I'm standing firm for the first time." "I'm proud of you," I told him. "That takes courage." "I learned it from my sister," he replied, his eyes meeting mine with newfound respect. The most unexpected development came through an industry women's leadership conference where I had been invited to speak. My presentation on ethical business practices and the courage to maintain boundaries received significant attention, leading to mentorship requests from young businesswomen facing similar challenges. I began meeting regularly with a group of 5 early career women, sharing experiences and strategies for navigating predominantly male industries while maintaining their values. Their stories of being dismissed, sidelined, or treated as accessories rather than professionals resonated deeply with my own experiences. The kitchen incident wasn't really about a wedding seating chart, I explained during one session. It was about power and visibility. About who deserves a place at the table and who doesn't. How did you find the courage to stand up in that moment? Asked Melanie, a promising financial analyst whose ideas were regularly attributed to male colleagues. I recognized that allowing disrespect wasn't just hurting me, I replied. It enabled patterns that would harm others after me. Sometimes standing up for yourself means standing up for everyone who might find themselves in your position. This perspective had become my guiding principle. The incident that could have destroyed my confidence had instead crystallized my purpose, creating workplaces where respect wasn't contingent on power dynamics. Ironically, Richard Coleman facilitated this mission in unexpected ways. 3 months into my mentorship program, he reached out again, requesting another meeting. This time, his demeanor was markedly different. Humility replacing defensive pride. I've been doing intensive work with an executive coach, he explained. Part of my personal recovery involves making meaningful amends. I appreciate that. I replied cautiously. I've established a foundation supporting ethical business education, he continued. I'd like to fund scholarships for women entering male-dominated industries, with emphasis on corporate ethics and leadership. The proposal was substantial and thoughtfully structured. More surprisingly, Richard requested no public recognition or naming opportunities, suggesting genuine reflection rather than image rehabilitation. Why are you telling me this? I asked directly. Because I value your perspective, he answered without hesitation. And because I owe my awakening to your courage. My behavior at my daughter's wedding was indefensible, but it reflected deeper patterns I'd normalized throughout my career and family life. And Sophia? How's she processing these changes? His expression clouded. That relationship remains challenging. Sophia sees my evolution as weakness, my apologies as betrayal. She was raised in the environment I created, taught that power means never having to acknowledge harm. I'm sorry to hear that, I said sincerely. For both of you. Michael was right to step away, Richard admitted. He deserves better than what my daughter has become. What I helped her become. This conversation marked a turning point in my healing process. Richard's accountability, however delayed, allowed me to release lingering resentment and focus entirely on moving forward. I agreed to consult on his foundation's scholarship criteria, turning painful experience into meaningful opportunity for others. My parents, who had struggled to navigate the rift between their children, expressed relief at the gradual rebuilding of family connections. During our first family dinner after nearly 8 months apart, my father raised his glass in a simple toast. To learning from our mistakes, he said, his eyes moving between Michael and me. And to becoming better because of them. The healing wasn't instantaneous or complete. Michael still carried guilt for his failure to defend me. I still experienced moments of hurt remembering his silence. But we were actively choosing repair over resentment, growth over grievance. The most profound lesson emerged not from the dramatic confrontation at the wedding, but from the painful, complex aftermath. Standing up for yourself isn't a single moment of defiance, but a continuous commitment to your own worth and values. True strength isn't found in wielding power over others, but in maintaining integrity when doing so comes at personal cost. I no longer viewed the kitchen incident as simply humiliation or revenge. Instead, it had become a catalyst for transformation, not just for me but for everyone involved. The systems that enable disrespect often persist because those harmed remain silent. My refusal to accept mistreatment had created ripples that ultimately benefited many others. The sister who walked into that wedding, desperate for family connection at any cost, no longer existed. In her place stood a woman who understood that respect, like love, must be mutual to be meaningful. A woman who recognized that healthy boundaries aren't walls, but foundations upon which genuine relationships can be built. The kitchen where I was banished became the place where I found my voice. The table I was denied became the platform from which I now helped others claim their rightful seats. What began as exclusion had transformed into a mission of inclusion. And in that unexpected alchemy, I found not just healing but purpose. What about you? Have you ever had to stand up for yourself in a difficult situation? Did you find the courage to draw a line? Or do you wish you had responded differently? Share your stories in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need to hear that standing up for yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, sometimes the most painful moments become our most powerful teachers.